Hey everyone, it's Ollie from Mashup Games, and welcome back to the series where I go through the development of making my first commercial game in Unity. As of now, the game is currently codenamed Fantasy, a medieval fantasy tower defense game where you build your dungeon defenses to fend off waves of heroes. Last video we had added some UI to the game, improved the dungeon generation, amped up the look with some dungeon walls, and added the skeleton to the enemy fray. And this month, I have a lot to talk about. But first I'd like to thank you all for over 4,000 subscribers. I really appreciate it, and I thank you for wanting to join me on this game dev journey. That being said, I have a couple special things to announce when we reach 5,000, so hopefully you enjoyed this video enough to subscribe if you're not already. But let's get into the changes. So in the last video, I had the UI look like this. It's not terrible, but it's not that great. The minions are on the screen for selection, but they don't look that good. So I thought I would go with an idea you, the viewers, came up with. I thought initially of having the simple boxes for enemies like that of an inventory system, but to be honest it's been done so many times and I don't think it really fits the sort of game I have here. So instead I put together a picture concept of the UI that I had very briefly discussed last video, and that was having the UI as cards. I made a plain cardboard cutout of a card, and this way I can simply put the image of the minion on top, though I might make custom sprites for the cards later on. What I ended up with is more simple than the UI mockup I made, but I still like it nonetheless. I could have used the animator to animate this, but I often see a lot of people saying not to use the Unity animation in UI, because it would be called on every frame, which isn't good for performance. Then there's UI tweening, which is better in that it simply moves a UI element towards a given position and size. And though I felt tempted to use some asset packs on tweening, instead I just hard-coded the thing myself. I wanted the deck to have any number of cards, so I added some functionality to the deck where it would calculate the position of each card. This way the card deck is always aligned in the centre, no matter how many cards you have, and it makes it easier for card selection. So when you select a card, it pops up and all the cards lower down, and each card raises a little when you're hovering over it. You can also collapse the deck so it goes and hides off to the side, so it doesn't clutter up the screen, but it's always easily accessible with just one click. I also changed the enemy placement so it's not terrible. Before you would drag the minion to the room and the minion would be placed right in the middle of that room. Instead I did two things. First thing was, I changed the minion selection so that you can choose between dragging the card to the room position, or you can instead select the card and then you can place as many minions as you want before you run out of money. Second thing, I used a good old raycast to get the position of the mouse in world space and have a circle show where the enemy will be placed. And then that would pass into the part of the code that places the minion in the room, so now minions are placed in the room at the position of the mouse, and not just in the middle. Now it should be said that around this time, my laptop killed itself. What had happened was that for some time my laptop has had minor problems, such as not being able to open some games or install certain things and whatnot, which basically didn't allow me to use Visual Studio at all. So I tried resetting the laptop, but then that caused even more problems that didn't even allow me to log in, and ultimately wasn't able to boot. So I shipped it off to the company I got it from for an RMA, and have currently resorted to using my 8-year-old laptop that you can tell I've had for some time because it's heavy, slow, and it's got a Smosh sticker on it. It's a good thing I backed up my important files onto an external hard drive before I tried resetting the laptop, so fortunately Fantasy wasn't lost in any capacity. But I did make one mistake in that I didn't copy my recordings folder, which I thought, okay, I won't need these, all my recordings have been used in videos now. But what I seemed to have forgotten at the time was that I still hadn't made the video on Clock Tower. So I'm incredibly sorry for anyone looking forward to making a video on that, but unfortunately I no longer have any footage on it to use. Hey guys, it's Ollie from the future, or rather, in the future from when I recorded my audio. So exciting news, for the past month I've been ordering computer components because I've been wanting to put together a PC, and since my laptop was off being fixed, I've now built myself a PC. So far this bad boy has been absolutely amazing. Here's a pic of it up and running, it looks amazing, it's got some cool lights, and it's just so much quicker and faster and better than any laptop I've ever used. And I got an email today saying my laptop is now fixed and being sent back, so I also have that. But enough of this very quick update from the future, back to the video. Since I didn't know how much I'd be able to work on the game with an old laptop, I decided to hold an event in my Discord server. I challenged my Discord members to have a go at designing their own minions or heroes. And let's just say I was very surprised in how many people got involved. Everyone had really cool ideas, and it would be unfair to not talk about one member, Salty Flump, who produced so many designs. It technically wasn't a competition, but if there had to be a winner, then you're it. I'll likely be having more competitions in the future, so make sure to join the Discord server if you want to be involved. But back to the development, and with that, a new door. The old one was pretty terrible and it didn't fit the aesthetic of the game, so instead I made a big door that looks like it's made out of those cardboard paper rolls. And talking about cardboard, I kind of made everything cardboard. And let me tell you what I mean by that. So the minions and heroes were sprites for some time, which was cool. But this meant that if I wanted shadows, I would need to fake them, which wouldn't have been too difficult, but there was another problem I was concerned with. I wanted heroes to have different types, and so different outfits, but with the way the sprites are set up, it would have required sprite masks and the like, which I didn't want to do, and it would have also involved drawing each sprite from a different angle. Another thing was that some people were saying that the sprites didn't really look like they were part of the world, as you can clearly tell a difference here. So I decided to make a big change, and change the entities from sprites to 3D models. This makes the entities look more fitting for the world, and then it allows me to better wrap the textures around the body. The current way I'm doing this is using a sprite texture that can unwrap to a sheet, and you can easily change the offset of the texture to make it look like the entity is turning round without actually turning round the object itself. It means I don't need to deal with sprite masking and all that, and this will come in handy when having the clothes on the entities and everything. There are still some problems that need to be solved or worked around, probably the biggest one being things that stick out. Here I'm talking about things like the goblin ears, or any hats the heroes want to wear. If the goblin turns round, then surely its ears should too, right? I could solve this by only having the features within the bounds of the cardboard model, or I could only use features that would look the same from all angles. This definitely needs more thinking on. So now the models look better, but there is one problem we haven't yet covered. So the way the combat works is that the minion will check if a hero is in the room, and then sets that hero as their target and moves towards the hero. When it's close enough, the enemy attacks their target until either the target is dead or the minion is dead. This worked fine, and it worked the same way with the heroes, but I wanted more flexibility in the combat. I wanted a minion to be able to attack more than one hero at once, and vice versa. So instead I changed the combat to be within the animation itself, in the form of a hitbox that will deal damage to any enemies that enter its trigger. That being implemented, I was able to actually implement the combat behaviour for the skeleton. Before, the skeleton just used a club like the goblin, but I want the skeleton to be long range. At first I thought of having it use a bow and arrow, or throw bones at people, but then I thought of a better idea. Bonerang! So now the skeleton throws a bone in front of them that returns, which is already more interesting than using the same club as the goblin. You know what, the game's looking quite nice now. I would like to save this. And now you can with a nearly useless function that I added in about 10 seconds. Now you can take a screenshot of the game that gets saved in a screenshots file. And if you press tab, you can also hide all the UI elements of the game. Granted, this is probably more of a developer tool than a feature for the game, but it's quite useful for me for getting images for the thumbnail or for Twitter. So that's about all I've done so far. My plan currently is to have a playable demo out for everyone at the end of October, and so I planned out what I needed to do this month and the next to make it happen. I was pretty good at keeping on schedule this month despite the whole computer situation, but as expected more things ended up being added to the list. Another thing to consider is what sort of condition I want this game to be in before I release the demo. At this point, there is only one type of hero and two types of enemies. This isn't a lot at all when compared with the things I want in the game, but I also want to have a playable version out as soon as possible in order to get player feedback and confirm whether the core gameplay itself is fun or not. But on the other hand, I also want the game to be complete enough so that the players can have fun. What do you think? Leave a comment down below. But anyway, you'll have to wait until the next video to hear on whether the demo will be out soon or not. And a reminder that I have a special announcement at 5,000 subscribers, so if you've liked this video then please like and subscribe. It tells the YouTube algorithm that I'm a person worth watching, and that will really help me out. But for now, this is Mashup Games, signing out.